told me I should fight back. They don't like that. Just know if you rock the boat, you better have a life raft. Woo!
What up, everybody in the YTBC? Real quick, before I get into the topic of the video, just want to give a big shout out to everybody who is uploading with integrity. Also want to give a big shout out to everybody who is doing live streams and really gives their commenters a platform to give their piece, such as BDA Boxing, UGC Boxing Channel, Main Man Made Man. I mean, really just too many to mention. I've been in a lot of these live streams lately. But I just want to give a big shout out to everybody. Actually, Main Man Made Man is the reason why I'm making this video. He is somebody that I really respect. He's really somebody that, you know, I can honestly say when I disagree with him, it's not on some BS. It's honestly just a difference of opinion. In this particular subject, I really can't see it his way. And this really isn't necessarily just all directed toward him. A lot of this is going to be just general talk. But this whole thing, me and Made Man, we were in the comment section of one of his videos, and it was about the whole Deontay Wilder versus AJ situation we got here. And first off, I'm just so tired of this whole subject. It's very tiring, but it's hard not to talk about because a lot of the boxing content that's uploaded on YouTube is about this situation. But I'm going to talk about it. Hopefully this is the last time that I'm going to talk about it. But, you know, a lot of channels that I respect talk about this subject, and it's just very hard to avoid. So rather than try to avoid the inevitable, I'm just going to go in. Plus, you know, I think that's a big reason why I don't upload as much anymore. Is just, you know, I'm tired of this subject, but it just seems to be the hot topic. It seems to be the hot button that everybody just wants to talk about. And the reality is, if I wait till this whole thing blows over, I'll probably never upload. So, which is not something that I want to do, you know. And that's another thing. I need to work on that. I need to upload at least once a week. This year, there's been times where I haven't uploaded for over a month. So I need to really just make the time, which is what I'm doing right now. Right now it's Saturday morning, and I very rarely did I ever record a video on a Saturday or a Sunday. Sometimes I would upload a reaction right after a fight, but typically I've never been one to you know, record videos on Saturdays and Sundays. But I think I'm gonna have to start doing it at least on Saturdays. I need to upload at least once a week. Anyways, let me stop rambling and get into the topic of the video. I just don't understand the logic of this 50-50. You know, whether you feel it's a 50-50 fight on who wins, you know, I can see that. I mean, I think AJ is going to win, but, you know, I can understand why a lot of people feel it's a 50-50 fight. But as far as the purse split is concerned, I don't see it. See, this is why I really can't stand the business of boxing, because it just gets in the way too much. But the reality is, it's here and it's here to stay. It's not going nowhere. So I try my best not to talk about it. but it's going to come up from time to time. It's just going. It's inevitable. So as long as it's here to stay, we might as well talk about it and talk about the fairness. I mean, if this fight is a 50-50 fight, every fight should be 50-50. Because the only logic that I can see where this is a 50-50 fight is that, well, ain't nobody gonna pay to see these guys shadow box. Okay, well, every fighter needs a dance partner. Let's make every fight a 50-50 fight. But we know that's not gonna happen. Let's be real. There is an A side and a B side. And really the money and location, in my opinion, are the only things that I think the A side should have control over. Shouldn't be any of this other bullshit where they're trying to get an edge to win the fight. But back to that's really the only logic. Like if somebody said, well, it should be a 50-50 fight, but all purses should be 50-50, I would disagree with it, but I could respect that. And not saying that I don't respect main man, made man. I'm just saying I don't understand what his logic is for it having to be 50-50. Like where is the argument for that? Because on the legacy side, I don't see where you can make the argument, because Deontay Wilder's best win is against Luis Ortiz, whose best win is Bryant Jennings. That's not that high quality of a win. And while he was avoided, that doesn't change the fact that it's not, he didn't prove beyond Bryant Jennings. That doesn't change that fact. That's the whole reason why I never used that argument when I was talking about, when I was trying to defend Keith Thurman. Every time I defended Keith Thurman, I never said, well, and this was before he fought Porter or Garcia. I never once brought up, that, well, everybody's avoiding him. I wasn't giving him credit for things he didn't do yet. The thing is, at that time, and still today, to a certain extent, the welterweight division, nobody was fighting each other. Everybody was fighting bums. From being honest. And in recent years, they've been mixing it up a little bit, but it's like pulling teeth to get that to happen. But in the case of Deontay Wilder, that's simply not the case. He could have been went after Klitschko. He could have been there's a very good chance that we wouldn't be having this conversation if he fought Klitschko. I'm not saying he would have beat Klitschko, but it's definitely a chance. Let's be real. Deontay Wilder got that equalizer. It's Deontay Wilder's fault why it's not a 50-50 fight on the legacy side. It is his fault. Because we're going to get to the business side in a second. But on the legacy side, and the thing that really bothers me about Deontay Wilder is, in the beginning it was, well, it's not about the money, it's about the legacy. But the main argument right now has nothing to do with the legacy, really. His best win is Luis Ortiz. Now, he has a better name on his resume, but it's not a win, it's a draw. Now, some people might say, well, the count was long and he really should have won that fight. Well, you could also make the same argument that the Luis Ortiz fight should have been a loss for him, because there's an argument that you could make that the end of the 7th round should have been a TKO. There's also an argument to be made where he was given special treatment by given extra time by the referee at the beginning of the 8th round to see a doctor. But see, here's where consistency is key. I'm not saying that he should have lost the Ortiz fight. He got the W, and that is what happened. Well, in the case of Fury, he got a draw, and that is what happened. Whether you think the count was long, which that's been debunked, but if your stance, because I've heard people say, well, it's a 10 count, it's not necessarily 10 seconds. Okay, fair enough. But still, at the end of the day, it was a draw. Me feeling that Ortiz beat Deontay Wilder in the 7th, that it should have been ended in the 7th round, doesn't override what happened at the end of the fight. Just like you feeling like Fury was out for the count doesn't change the outcome of that fight. So let's hold the same standards. And really, I don't have to go over any of the other names that Deontay Wilder has, because they're all trash. But so back to Luis Ortiz being that's the best win that Deontay Wilder has. Well, I'm sorry, but Luis Ortiz does not trump Vladimir Klitschko. Luis Ortiz was never a champion. Luis Ortiz's best win was over Bryant Jennings. Vladimir Klitschko, he ran the division for a decade. And part of running the division was a win over Bryant Jennings. Klitschko is way more accomplished than Luis Ortiz. That is a fact. So, I don't see how Ortiz is a better win than Klitschko. I'm sorry. I have to call bullshit on that. I feel that people say that just because it's convenient and they feel that they have an argument for it. But really, when you get down to brass tacks, that argument is very easy to destroy, to obliterate. Then you got Joseph Parker, who was a champion. And, I hear this a lot. Well, Anthony Joshua is a paper champion because he didn't beat the guy who beat the guy. Well, neither did Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder got his belt by beating Stavern, who won the belt when it was vacant. So Stavern didn't beat Klitschko. He got it when it was vacated, just like Joseph Parker. But the difference is Joseph Parker actually had some defenses under his belt. It wasn't a whole lot, but he had some. Unlike Stavern, who lost it in his first defense against Wilder. So you really can't. You can make more arguments for Parker being a credible win than you can make for Stavern, because all Stavern did was beat Areola. And I'm sorry, Areola, he ain't really nobody. I mean, he's somebody. Let me take that back, because that's not fair to Areola. But Areola, in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about elite fighters, is not really in the conversation. Let me word it that way. I don't want to disrespect the guy. He's a professional fighter. But in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking elite fighters, he's not in the conversation. I mean, and to be honest, right now, Joseph Parker isn't either. At the time, he was. I guess you could make the same argument with the WBO, just because, it is a similar situation. Charles Martin, I'll be honest, wasn't really proven. So, you know, I really can't give a real argument for that one. But then again, Deontay Wilder just had just as much opportunity to fight him as Joshua did. In fact, arguably, Deontay Wilder had an easier way to make that fight because Martin was with Al Heyman. I don't know if I think he still is. I'm not sure about that, but I know for a fact he was at the time. And still, AJ beat him to the punch to make that fight. So, you know, on paper, I mean, it's the same situation as Stavern, but when you start digging, there's really no excuse why Deontay Wilder couldn't have beat him to the punch. It's just laziness. Let's just call it what it is. Laziness. He was much more complacent fighting Spilka and Duapa and Eric Molina and all these other people instead of trying to become unified. Isn't that funny how that works? He didn't want to be unified until all the rest of the belts were already unified. He waited for the other dude, the dude who came in after him, to do all the work. Half the fights and did more work than you. That's why he loses the legacy argument. Because then Joshua also beat Klitschko. Very good chance that if Deontay Wilder would have went after Klitschko before Joshua, which he had plenty of opportunity to do that, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. But the fact of the matter is, he didn't. So we can't give him credit for doing something he didn't do. But guess who did go after Klitschko? Joshua. And, you know, yeah, that was a vacant title, but guess what? The guy who beat Klitschko wasn't fighting at the time. At the time, we weren't sure he was even coming back. Now, Fury never officially retired, but he definitely hinted at the possibility that that's what was going to happen. So we can't fault Joshua for that. He's supposed to say, no, I'm not going to fight for the WBA. I'll fight Klitschko, but not for the WBA title because Klitschko doesn't still have that title. You expect him to do that? Because you sure as hell didn't expect Deontay Wilder to do that. Why didn't Deontay Wilder try to make that fight? That's a good legacy fight. But guess what? Deontay Wilder only has 2 legacy fights. And one of them he drew. And the other one ain't that big quality of a legacy fight. Deontay Wilder really doesn't win the legacy argument at all. And I mean, just Anthony Joshua's resume overall is just better than Deontay Wilder's. Even at being half the fights, it's still better. Because he still has Povetkin. He still has Takam. You know, he still has White. I mean, I guess you could throw Takam out the window. Takam, you know, I think he's good quality opposition. Better than most of what Deontay Wilder has fought. But, you know, I'll give you a pass if you want to throw Takam out. But you definitely should give me a pass for throwing Bermain Stavern out. Because he didn't do nothing. And he lost again to Joe Joyce. So, I mean, there's just no argument for Deontay Wilder on the legacy side. Now let's go ahead and talk about the business side. This one, I really don't see any kind of argument for Deontay Wilder on this side either. Because Deontay Wilder has only had one pay-per-view. I heard a clown say, was the Fury fight not pay-per-view in the UK as well? You know, trying to say that, well, Anthony Joshua is only a star in the UK and not globally. And trying to say that Deontay Wilder is. But let's be real. The reason why that fight was pay-per-view is, one, it was a title fight. And two, it was against Fury. Not only was Fury the reason why it was a pay-per-view over there, Fury was the reason why it was a pay-per-view over here. Because that was Wilder's first pay-per-view. You can't say it was because of Wilder. Wilder was, now I'm gonna give Wilder some credit here. Part of it, a small part of it was because Wilder and because he's the champion. But if he fought anybody else other than Fury or AJ, that was not going to be a pay-per-view fight here. And it would still be a pay-per-view fight over there in the UK. That's just facts. And not only was that Deontay Wilder's first pay-per-view, a lot of people seem to forget this. A lot of Wilder's fights on Showtime made it available for you to watch his fights without a Showtime subscription. Showtime took the loss to try to promote this guy. You did. They did. If I'm not mistaken, because it's been a little while, but if I'm not mistaken, when he fought Areola, that was a fight that you didn't have to have a Showtime subscription. But as long as you had cable and you had the ability to go to the Showtime channel, you were still able to watch that fight. Whatever they do to block the channel was lifted, and when the card was over, it went back to you couldn't watch Showtime. And that's not the only fight. I believe it was like that with Molina as well. And it might have even been like that with Stavern. I know there was at least 2 fights that Deontay Wilder had as a champion. We're not talking about when he was a prospect. We're not talking about when he was up and coming. As a champion, he had at least 2 fights that Showtime waived the subscription requirement so that everybody who had the Showtime channel at least accessible. You know what I'm talking about when you have cable, but if you have a channel, if there's a channel that you don't have, you can still go to the channel. You'll just have a screen that says, you know, that you don't have a subscription to this channel. To add it, please call us or press this button or whatever. You know, your cable company is going to charge you more money for it. They got rid of that for the Deontay Wilder cards at least twice. So let's not act like Deontay Wilder is an international superstar. The only reason why that fight was pay-per-view in the UK was for Fury, and the only reason why it was a pay-per-view here was because of Fury. That's facts. Which is funny because when it came to AJ may not be a pay-per-view attraction here in the States, but he's not only a pay-per-view attraction in the UK. His fight with Joseph Parker was pay-per-view in New Zealand. And if I'm being fair, you can make the argument that's because of Parker. But if you're going to say that Deontay Wilder is an international superstar because he had a pay-per-view here and in the UK, then you can say the same thing for AJ. By that logic, AJ is also an international superstar. And the rest of this is simple on the business side. AJ simply makes more money than Deontay Wilder. The proof is in the pudding. He has been making more money per fight than Deontay Wilder. His first pay-per-view was over 500,000 pay-per-view buys. Deontay Wilder's wasn't. It was like 325K or something like that. And maybe not even. You know how it goes with these numbers. But I mean, and even if you say maybe not even for AJ, well, 500, maybe not even 500K is still more than maybe not even 325K on the first pay-per-view. But Wilder is late to the party. AJ's been doing pay-per-views. And the fact of the matter is, ain't nobody doing pay-per-views like that here in the States. This year, the highest pay-per-view is like what, 400K? Last year was, if I'm not mistaken, over $1 million, but that was Canelo and Triple G. Canelo's really the only one who can still do pay-per-views, but guess what? He ain't even doing pay-per-views anymore. That really says something about here in the States. When the guy who is the biggest pay-per-view star currently in the States is no longer doing pay-per-views. There's pay-per-views still going on, but they're not doing that great. Supposedly Amir Khan is a big pay-per-view draw, and his fight with Terrence Crawford did less than 150,000 supposedly. So, I mean, I don't even really think the pay-per-view market here is great to begin with. So saying that AJ's not a pay-per-view draw here is not that really, it's not that big of a hit when you really think about it. When you really get into the details, I mean, who really is Canelo? And he ain't even doing them no more. He's on DAZN. And then when it gets down to the character of the fighters, Deontay Wilder loses there too. As I stated before, he said it's not about money, it's about legacy. Now it's all about the money. A lot of people gave AJ flack for not taking the 50 million, even though there was no details that were given to him. But yet, DAZN offers Deontay Wilder 120 million, 2 guaranteed fights with AJ and a fight with Brazil, who he's going to fight anyways. And I guarantee you it's not going to be 20 million. It's more than likely not going to be 10 million. It may not even be 5 million. So if you figure 50 million per AJ fight, and that leaves 20 million for the Brazil fight. He's not going to make that fighting Brazil now. I guarantee it. There's no way. And like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't even 5. Because like I said, what he made on his last fight is because of Fury, not because of his own merit. So that in the, that doesn't make any sense. So you're going to get on to AJ for turning down 50 million with no details, but you're perfectly fine with Deontay Wilder turning down 120 million with all the details. One of the details is fighting a dude you're going to fight anyways, just for more money. And you get 2 fights with AJ, guaranteed. I thought that's what this was all about. You want to become undisputed. You got 2 chances to become undisputed and make a shit ton of money in the process. But we're going to harp on this 50-50 when it's not a 50-50. I'm going to be real with you. I don't think Deontay Wilder deserves the $120 million. For that deal, for the same exact deal, all the terms and conditions being exactly the same. Realistically, I think Deontay Wilder probably deserves maybe $75 million. Maybe. And that might be a bit too generous, if I'm being honest. Deontay Wilder does not really have... I don't see any logic that is consistent that you can use other than every fight should be 50-50. If your stance is every fight in the sport of boxing should be 50-50, then I can't argue with that logic. But based on anything else, legacy, business, character, Deontay Wilder loses in all those boxes. All those boxes. And his team, he loses. There's a fourth box where he loses. His team. You can't even say, well, well, at least the team is trying to. No, they're not. Because Finkel's already said the fight ain't happening this year. And you got Eddie Hearn sending offers and revised offers and way more money than Deontay Wilder has ever made and ever will make, more than likely. So let's stop it. Let's stop it. I ain't giving AJ credit for beating Ortiz just because Ortiz ducked him. So let's stop giving Deontay Wilder all this credit for bullshit. Because that's really all it is. It's all bullshit. Anyways, I probably left something out. Which is cool because this is still way longer than what I wanted it to be. But I just want to understand the logic. We don't have to disagree, or we don't have to agree on that logic, but it doesn't make sense. There's just not, when I look at everything that I just mentioned, it's heavily in AJ's favor. I think, if I'm being honest, a fair purse would be 60-40 in favor of Joshua. Joshua has all the belts. Joshua's been making this money. This isn't something new for him. This is something new for Deontay Wilder, and it's not even really on his merit. It's on the back of somebody else's. And the character, you can't even say, well, he deserves 50-50 because he's really trying to make this fight, because he's not. He said multiple times, I'm not obligated to fight Anthony Joshua. His team is saying it's not happening this year. Luis Ortiz is saying that he's been promised the Deontay Wilder fight. So let's stop with the bullshit. Like, what is the logic? What is the real logic? And if you're just a fan of Deontay Wilder, fair enough. Fair enough. If that is your logic, that's why you think he needs 50-50, then I don't have a problem with that. You know, I disagree with it, but at least you're being honest. But I don't see it. To all my subscribers, anybody watching my videos, or if you just so happen to stumble on this video, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there something that I'm missing? Do you have a viable logic, a viable argument that you can make for Deontay Wilder? I'm all ears. And check out Main Man Made Man. He is a good channel. I respect him. And amongst other channels that I disagree with. And if you have a channel, please let me, when I say you, I'm talking about anybody who comes across this video, let me know. Even if I disagree with you, that don't mean I won't subscribe to you. Because as long as you're being honest, that's all that counts to me. Just as long as you're not trying to use skin politics and just extreme fanboyism. I mean, even in some cases, I've even made exceptions. I'm still subscribed to Shady Slim, who is the ultimate Khan fanboy. But y'all have a wonderful and blessed day. Peace.
Undefeated. Undefeated.